Okay, so this is part 3 of our lab 3, and we are going to start with the subtotal. So you declare a variable for the subtotal, and it says that the subtotal is computed as the price less the amount of discount, so minus. So the price minus the amount of discount plus the cost of extras. So that is how we are going to calculate the subtotal. So I'll go to my code, declare a variable for the subtotal. So because it is a decimal, I'm going to add it to this particular declaration. So comma subtotal. So I have my subtotal variable. So I'll go and then perform the calculations down here. So the subtotal is equal to the price minus the discount plus the extras, the total extras. So afterwards, we are going to display the subtotal inside one of the output text boxes. So I'm going to check the name of that particular text box. So we are going to display the answer inside this particular uh, text box. So if I select it, you see that I called it subtotal text box. Let me go back to the code, come back to where my outputs are. So subtotal. So the subtotal text box is text property is equal to the subtotal answer that we get inside this particular variable. So subtotal, and then we are going to convert it to a string. We give it n2. So n standing for no currency, and then the 2 standing for 2 decimal places. Okay, so we have our subtotal also done. Let's try and run and see if everything works perfectly. Okay, so I'll leave this place and then type until 650 and check this and select this. Select 1, 2, 3. Okay, hit compute. So I have this as my discount, I have this as my extras based on what I selected over here, and I have the subtotal to be 11 whatever. So the subtotal was the price minus the discount plus the extras, giving us the subtotal. Okay, so let's try and use what the question gave and see if we get the same thing. So let's check the interface. So the interface was 16250. This was checked. Paint 1, 2, 3 was also selected. So 16250. Let's see. Let me change this to 16250. So let's compare the answers that we have. So I have 3250 94595 39. So it means that our calculation is on point. So the next thing that we are going to tackle is the sales tax. So let's deal with the sales tax. Let's check the requirement for the sales tax. So for the sales tax, it says that regular customers must pay a state sales tax on their purchases. So the tax rate is 5%. So we can store this 5% as a constant and is computed on the subtotal. So 5% times the subtotal. Wholesale dealers purchasing a vehicle do not pay any sales tax. So if the wholesale dealer's checkbox is checked, the person will not pay any sales tax. The sales tax is going to be 0. But if it is not checked, then it means that the person is not a wholesale dealer, and for that matter, the person is going to pay this particular 5%. So this 5% is only going to apply to those who do not check that particular checkbox. So that is the rationale behind this particular sales tax. So let's go to the code and perform that function. So if that particular checkbox, so if this checkbox is checked, then it means that the sales tax is going to be 0.00. But if it is not checked, that is where the calculation is going to be done. So if this one is checked, then the sales tax is going to be 0. If it is not checked, then that is where the calculation is going to be done. So let's go to the code. So if the wholesale dealer checkbox dot checked, so if it is checked, then the sales tax, did we declare variable for sales tax? No. So let's go there and declare variable for sales tax. So I'll add it to this because it is also going to be a decimal. So sales, no, yes, sales tax. And I'll declare another constant to store the constant for the sales tax rate. So the constant for the sales tax rate as decimal, and it was 5%, so 0.5. So I'll go back to my, this one is subtotal. So, okay, subtotal. So I'll come here. So if that particular checkbox is checked, then the sales tax is going to be the subtotal so sorry, the sales tax is going to be 0. But if it is not checked, so I use the else to take care of that side. If it is not checked, then the sales tax is going to be the subtotal times the sales tax rate. So that is the calculation for the sales tax. So after getting the sales tax, we are going to output it in the sales tax text box. So the sales tax text box is text property is going to be the sales tax that we got and we convert it to a string. So N2 for that as well. Okay, so let's run our program and see. So let's use 16250. Select this, select 1, 2, 3, select this, hit compute. So you see that the sales tax is 0 when we checked this particular checkbox. And then our answers are correct over here. So let's uncheck this one. So if we check this one, the discount is going to be calculated. So when it was checked, the discount was calculated. If we uncheck it, the discount will be 0 and then the sales tax will be calculated. So let's compute. So the discount becomes 0 and then the sales tax is computed on the subtotal. Okay. Let's tackle the next part of the question. So the next part of the question also deals with the total due. So this is computed as the subtotal plus the sales tax less the value of trade in. So we are going to add the sales tax to the subtotal. After adding it, we are going to subtract the trade in that the user is going to type, if there is any. So if the user doesn't type any trade in, the question says the trade in should be 0. But if the user types any trade in, then the sales tax is going to be added to the subtotal, and then the trade in is subtracted from the answer to get the total due. So let's tackle the total due as well. So we first declare a variable for the trade-in. So trade in. And then we also declare another variable for the total due. So we come to the calculation. It says that the total due is equal to, first of all, the subtotal plus the sales tax minus the trading. So this is the calculation for the total due. And the total due is also going to be displayed in its corresponding text box. So the total due text box, its text property is going to be the total due answer that we had, and we convert it to a string. And we have that one to be N2 as well. So let's run it and see. So let's use the same values in the question. 16250. Select this, select the discount, select this, that, and that. And let's see if there was any trade in the question. So there was no trade in, so I won't check that one. Okay, so if there is no trade in, this is the answer that we are going to get. So I'm going to use going to type something without the trade in, then I add the trade in as well. So I come back to the program. If I run it, see that I got this answer the same as what we had in our, but let me add a trading. So change the trading to 1000. Let's compute it again. So it means that we are having a problem with somewhere. Let's run the program and see again. Okay, so what I forgot is that you see that the trading is something the user is going to type. The trading is something the user is going to type. So I have to first, when the user types it, it is in a text form. So I have to convert it to a decimal. So that is what I forgot to do. So let's go back to the code. So where we converted the price, let's do the same thing for the trading. So the trading is equal to the decimal dot pass so whatever that is passed to the trade in text box, that is what we are converting. So the text property of that particular text box is what we are converting to a decimal. Okay, so let's run it again and see. So 16 to 50. Select this, the two of this, and this one. Hit compute. Okay, so we have this. Let's try and change the trade in and see if it is subtracted. Okay, so it is subtracted. So the trading is working now. Okay, so let's go to the next part of the question. So we are done with the sales start, the subtotal, the total due. Say we must declare constant wholesale discount. We are done with this one too. So the next thing, let's go to the compute button. Says calculation for discount, whatever, calculation for the extras, so calculation for the subtotal. Say you have done that. Let's move on to the next. It says accumulate the grand total due. So we have to also find the grand total due. So if purchases are made, the first purchase is made, we click the compute button. The second one, we click the compute button. Third one, we click the compute button. All those totals should also be added together. So that is what we are about to do now. Okay, so we go back to the code. Now, so I have to declare a variable that is going to store the grand total, but I'll use the grand total in a different sub procedure. I'll use the grand total in a different sub procedure. The grand total, okay, so so currently we are working with the compute button. So every code that we wrote went into the compute sub procedure, but the grand total is going to go inside the is also going to be used inside the total sub procedure. Even though we are working within the compute sub procedure, we have to declare the variable so that both procedures can be able to use it. So that's why we are going to declare that particular variable at the modular level and not in the sub procedure level. So that particular sub grand total as a variable is going to be declared as a modular variable so that both procedures can use it at the same time. So I'll go back to the code, and to the top part here, I'll declare a variable as a modular variable. So when you are declaring as a modular variable, you don't use them, you use what? Private. So private grand total as a decimal. So I have the grand total as a decimal. But then that particular grand total is going to be an accumulation of the total due. So it's going to be an accumulation of the total due. So I'll come here and I'll say that that particular grand total is equal to the total due is equal to the grand total itself plus the total due. So this is how we are going to accumulate it. So we are done with the accumulation too. Says you should accumulate the grand total. So we are done with the accumulation. It says that is the total of all total dues. So accumulation of the total dues. It says we should also accumulate the account of the number of vehicles sold to an integer variable. So we have to do an accumulation of the number of items sold when the compute button is what? Clicked. So when the compute button is clicked for the first time, it counts 1. When it's clicked at this another time, 2, and as follows. So I'm going to also declare another modular variable and name it, let's say, total count. And it says we should declare it as an integer. So that one is also an accumulation. So the total count is equal to the total count itself plus 1. So anytime that the compute button is clicked, the total count will have 1 added to its particular value. So I'm done with the total count as well. So we are done with the compute button too. So the next thing on our list, we are done with the reset button. The next thing on our list is the totals button. So the question says that when the total button is clicked, this is what you do. The totals, when the totals button is clicked, there should be a message box that displays like the one that is shown below. So this is the message box it is talking about. You should show this particular information. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to skip this one for now. I'm going to do the validations, and I'll use another video to also explain the totals button. Then we are done. So I'm going to do the validations for the text boxes, then before we come and continue with the last aspect, which is the totals button. Okay, so let's deal with the validations. The first validation, the first rule is that when the compute button is clicked, the lot number text box cannot be blank. So the lot number text box cannot be blank. So what do we do? So if it is blank, we have to show an error and tell it is blank. Okay, so let's come back to our code. So if you want to do the validations, this is what you do. I'll come to the end of the sub procedure. So we are not going to work inside the compute button. We are going to do a different sub procedure for validating it. So there's the sub procedure for resetting. There's the sub procedure for exiting. And this is the sub procedure for the compute button. So it ends here. So I'm going to do another sub procedure. So what you do is you come here and then you click on the top here. So the first validation I'm going to do is for the lot number text box. So I'll select the lot number text box over here. Then I'll come to this side and look for validating. So this is validating. So I select it. And we wait for the sub procedure to be created for us. So you see that the lot number validating sub procedure has been created for us. So the question said that if this particular lot number is empty, then the program should not be allowed to continue. So what we do is, if the lot number text box, if the lot number text box dot text, so the text property of that text box is equal to string dot empty. So if that particular text box has its text property to be an empty string, then what are we going to do? We are going to prevent the user from continuing. So the user cannot change to a different text box if that particular text box is what? Empty. So what we use is something we call the e.cancel. So we set e.cancel equals true. So this will prevent the user from moving from that particular text box to a different text box if that particular text box is what? Empty. Let's try it and see. So this is the lot number text box. Right now it is empty. I'm trying to click inside the year text box, but it's still not moving. I press on the tab, it is still not moving because of the e.cancel. But the moment I type something and press tab, right now it can move because that particular text box is not what? Empty. But you realize that when it was empty and I was trying to move to a different text box, nothing was happening, and then there was no error message to tell me that I should do something. So what we are going to do is, if it is empty and we try to move into a different text box, there should be an error that shows here for us to see that, oh, okay, there is a mistake inside here. And when we hover on that particular error, we should see a message that shows that particular error. So that is what we are going to do next. We are going to do something that makes sure that when we are trying to move from a text box that is empty, it is going to show an error over here for us to know that, okay, there's something that we need to do before we can move to a different text box. You see that even if I want to exit, it's not going to allow me to exit unless I type something within it. Okay, so let's take care of that one too. So we use something we call the error provider. That is what we use to display that particular error message. So I'll go back to my form, go to the toolbox. I can search for error provider. So this is error provider. I can click and drag onto my form. So I have my error provider on my form. So when you drag it onto the form, you see that it gives a name over here as error provider 1. So that is the name that we are going to reference when we are working with the error provider. So I'll come back to the code and I'll say that when the e.cancel is set to true, then the error provider 1 should also set an error message. So when the e.cancel is set to true, the error provider 1 should also set an error message, and that error message should be set on the lot number text box, comma, and then what message do we want to pass to it? Let's say lot number cannot be empty. So let's try it and see. Let's run it and see. So if I press on the tab, you see that this is showing over here, and if I point the mouse to it, it is showing that the lot number cannot be empty. So that is the function of the error provider. But if I type something in it and I move to a different text box, you see that the error provider is still showing the message. So it means that when this is not empty, the error provider should be also set to a null value. It should be set to an empty string. So let's tackle that one too. So if it is empty, then it should show the error provider. If it is not empty, then the error provider should be set to nothing. So let's take care of that. So we are going to use the else to take care of that. Let me take this one away. So I type else. So else, the error provider 1 dot set error. Then we are setting the error for the lot number text box, and this time around we are setting the error to an empty string. So let's run it and see what happens. So I have it as empty. When I press on it, the error shows. When I type something and press tab, then the error disappears. So we are done with validating this particular text box. We are going to see if the same rule applies to this and that. If the same rule applies to this, it means we are going to apply the same logic for this particular text box and this particular text box as well. So let's check the question. So the question says that the year text box cannot also be blank, so it is the same as this one. The vehicle make text box can also be blank, so the three are of the same rule, so similar things will be done for that. 4, 5 is different, so let's apply the same principle to the year text box and then the vehicle make text box. So the same thing, I'll come to the end of the sub procedure, press enter, come here. So the next one is the year text box. So there's the year text box. I come to this side and search for validating. So validating, then it creates the sub procedure for me. So I'm not going to type everything again. I'm going to just copy this one, come into my sub procedure and paste it. So the only thing I'm going to change over here is this text box. So this time around we are dealing with the year text box. So I come here, we are dealing with the year text box. I come to this side, we are dealing with the year text box, and I change the message to year cannot be empty. So we are done with that one too. Let's come to the end of the sub procedure, and then the vehicle make text box. Come here and change its validating. So I get that, paste, change this side to vehicle make text box, change this one to vehicle make text box, change this one to vehicle make text box, and change here to vehicle make cannot be empty. So vehicle make or model cannot be empty. So I'm done with the 3. Let's run it and see. So if I press tab, the error shows. When I type something, the error moves away. If I press tab, the error shows. If I type something, move, the error goes away. If I type something, it moves away. Okay, so we are done with the 3 validations. So the other 2 validations and the total button will be done in a separate video as well.